Do you ever have a family member that's really chatty about exactly what's going on with them? My mother's that way. I'll call her and say, "Hey, Mom, what's going on?" And she begins to give me a very detailed play-by-play of absolutely everything that has occurred that particular day. I mean, a lot of detail. Hey, that's cool. Your Juniper device is the exact same way. It is creating system messages or system logs. We commonly refer to it as syslogs about various parameters and its health. Cool. We need to master this information and how to work with it. And also, we can go in and we can create traces. Cisco Systems refers to this as debugging. In Juniper, we do traces to get details as they happen about some particular process. Now, certainly you may want to configure certain users to see certain messages when they're at the CLI. Pretty cool. You may want to take the log messages and ship them off to an external host. We call this a syslog server, and it typically has software that will allow for the filtering of all these messages, the quick identification of the important ones, maybe even give you statistical information based on the syslog data. Certainly you may want them to go to an internal file location for safekeeping. And the location that is a default on a Juniper device is the var log location. So we need to see one of these syslog messages and see just how cool they are. And we also need to play a practical joke on my brother John. You ready? So here we are in edit mode, and I'm going to say edit system syslog. And what we're going to do is we're going to set a user to receive these system messages. Now watch this. I'm going to say the user is our John S. And notice we can indicate what facilities, what components inside the Juniper device will be reporting to him. I'll say any of them. And then we can indicate what possible severity levels. And once again, I'll say any of them. So poor John, I don't think this is going to work out very well for him at all. All the facilities that can generate messages, any particular severity level, even just totally passive informational type stuff is going to go to him. Let's go ahead and commit this configuration and quit. And we're going to see what happens here in a moment. Look at this. He's logged out because we said commit and quit, and his console is being flooded here. Notice we have time stamping on these syslog messages. We have the particular facility that generated the message. There's the MGD process that we spoke of. For you beer drinkers, that is not Miller Genuine Draft. That is the chassis management process. You can see the particular name of the message that was generated, and then you get a kind of plain text or a normal language explanation of what is going on. Notice this stuff that he's receiving, none of it is particularly important. It's just all background processes that are doing their thing. So, man, he's going to go and edit. He's going to see syslog information based on what he just did. It's going to drive him crazy. He's going to have to go into edit system syslog, and he's going to delete the configuration that's there. He's going to be so frustrated, and he's going to set his user account so that maybe he's only getting notified for emergency type situations. That would make a lot more sense. Now, what about sending the information to an external host? No problem. You're going to use the set host command in order to take certain facilities and certain logging levels and send them to an external host. And what about controlling the file, the particular syslog messages that are going to hit an internal file? Well, sure enough, you have set file, and you can specify things like the name of your file, but most importantly, what's going to be going into that file on the system. Now, we need to revisit a concept here, and that is help. Remember our help system. One of the mechanisms that's built into help for you is to interpret these syslog messages. So sure enough, in operational mode, there's help syslog. And you can go ahead and type in the name of a particular message that you're receiving. Like maybe you get UI dbase logout underscore event, and we learn the specifics regarding this particular syslog message thanks to the help system. And of course, this particular message is all about indicating a user exited configuration mode. Whoa. Notice the severity is indeed a notice. So this is something that the operating system is literally saying, look, this is not a big deal. We are not giving this like an emergency rating or anything like that, because this is going to happen all the time. It's interesting though, because this message could be relevant to someone if they were very carefully tracking the security of the device. They would want to know that, my goodness, someone was in configuration mode to begin with. So the value of the messages is going to depend on your particular monitoring strategy, but we now know how to manipulate and interpret these important syslog messages. So we're certainly impressed with syslog messaging. And syslog messaging, of course, isn't just restricted to Juniper devices, as you know. Lots of different network systems engage in syslogging, and you can have a centralized syslog server, as I referred to, accepting all these messages from all the network devices and helping you make sense out of those messages from a network management perspective. Now, tracing is when we're like a doctor and we take out our stethoscope, boy, was that hard for me to say, and we place it on the chest of an individual, breathing on it first to warm it up so as not to shock them, and we listen to their heartbeat. Well, that's what you're doing when you do a trace. You're going in for a particular process and you're seeing what is going on with that process instantaneously at the moment. By default, trace output goes to our var log location, just like the syslog output, and you'll see how we can create the file name that is going to be used in there for our particular trace. You can send traces to an external system, and you would do that with edit system tracing destination override syslog host. Juniper does a great job of ensuring that tracing does not harm the system, but let's face it, you don't want to engage in this when you don't need to. What's one more, the last thing you want to do is give your router or your switch one more thing to have to worry about for no reason. So we trace when we want to see the output. We're tracking down a particular troubleshooting moment in our environment. We then go ahead and we stop tracing the minute that we're done with that information. So how would you set up a trace? Super easy. You ready? You go under the particular protocol that you want to scrutinize and you set your trace options. So I'll go into the edit mode here and we'll say edit protocols OSPF, for example. So inside of your OSPF, you would say trace options. And you better use the set command first. There we go. Set trace options. And remember, context sensitive help is there for you. So you would say file, for example. I'll call mine OSPF underscore sample. And then just continue to see your options. Notice we can specify the maximum size of the trace file. This is a great idea. So I'll say a maximum size of 128K. We can ensure that only we can read it. So you can say no world readable on this particular file. And we set up the tracing for that file for the OSPF protocol. And as you noticed, we can also set the particular flags. Flags are going to identify exactly what aspects of the protocol that we're going to trace and at what level of detail that we want. So once again, you set your trace options, and this time we indicate flag. And notice we can go after very, very particular things like LSA update. So I'll say set trace options flag LSA update. We'll use our context sensitive help. We can get detailed information about this. We can turn off this particular trace flag. We can receive do this for received packets or do this for transmitted packets. So I'll go ahead and say we want information, detailed information about all LSA updating, and we've just set that particular flag for our trace. Now, you've gotten a sense for just how powerful this is, both the syslog and the tracing in this particular nugget, and we often send these results to an internal file in the system. And you know, in both the case of logging and tracing, that's the var log location, but how would you view that information? Well, I'm sending all syslog messages right now to a file called mylog. So in operational mode, I would simply say show, and I would say log, and I would say mylog. And now I am viewing all of those syslog messages that have been sent to that particular log file that I created. And inevitably, you're going to want to remove a log or a trace's contents. Very easy to do that. In operational mode, I will say clear log mylog, for example. And now we can confirm that with a show log mylog. And the only particular messages that we get are involving the fact that we just cleared the log and then we wanted to view the log. So, you get the idea. Very easy to view and manipulate these files. So in this nugget, it sure seemed like we were spending our time monitoring the Juniper device. And yes, we were. But we are not done with that discussion. There are many more ways in which we can monitor the health of our devices, and we're going to get into those additional methodologies in our nugget on monitoring Juniper equipment. So cool. I sure hope you found this nugget informative, though, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.